Okay, so my first attempt at a YouTube video. I've been watching YouTube for years, watching guys like Mr. Pete Tubalcain, Keith Fenner, Keith Rucker, Jimmy DiResta of course, Myford Boy, who's brilliant. The stuff he produces is just incredible, and AVE, who is always brightens the day, makes me chuckle. He's bloody hilarious and a really clever bloke as well. They all are, all clever, knowledgeable blokes who know their stuff. So I've always thought I'd like to have a go at making a video, see if I make a complete pig's ear of it or whether I can do a good job, but the thing that's held me back is I really don't know a lot about anything, to be honest. But the other day I wanted to put an airline in my workshop, so from where the compressor is one side of the workshop up across and then back down, so I got an outlet near the bench. Now I looked on YouTube, the source of everything, all human knowledge is on there, and there was nothing on doing it in steel. There was plastic, copper, these pre-packed kits that you can buy with flexible tube, which I don't really get, to be honest, because I'm not a pipe fitter by any means, but I've done pipe fitting in the past. I've done airline pipe fitting, not a lot, but I've done a bit, and I don't really understand why people aren't using iron, which is what we tend to call it in the UK. I'm not sure what you guys call it stateside, but what I'm talking about is steel tube, something like that. That's 1/2 inch, made by the Tata Corporation in UK. Used to be Chorus Steel, but not anymore, unfortunately. Well, I don't know, Tata seemed pretty good at it. And then threaded like that, so that's a coupler, or a socket rather. I think Sparkies call it couplers, pipe fitters call them sockets. But no one seems to be doing it in that. Now, from what I know from bits I've done, this stuff's bloody cheap. It's not huge money. It's easy to install. Christ, I've done it in the past, so it can't be that difficult. And all you need is a bit of kit. The bit of kit you need isn't exactly difficult. It is, if I go find one. There you go, there's one. Die stock. That's a pipe threading die stock. Now this one is actually 3/4, so it ain't no good for this stuff. Just drop straight through. But I've got something similar for 1/2 inch. There you go. This is Greenfield, Massachusetts. All you guys stateside will like that, I would have thought. You can see that. What is it AVE says? Maybe I better not. I might get banned on YouTube in my first video. Greenfield, Massachusetts. Little Giant, made in the US of A. Unfortunately the cheap one I got is Chinese, I'm afraid, the one that fits 1/2 inch. Right, I'm wittering now. So the idea is to produce a video showing how easy it is to use BSP pipe fittings. BSP, so that's the thread form in there, British Standard Pipe. There's BSPT and BSPF. Bizarrely, BSPF is parallel, so what that means is, let me get a male thread out. So that is a short piece of tube with a thread on either side, which is laughably known this side of the pond as a nipple. Whether you guys call it the same stateside, I don't know, but there you go. You can see on this, I hope, that it is actually a tapered thread. Get a rule to make it a bit more obvious. So put that on the side there, and you can see that that thread is tapered. So that is a BSPT, British Standard Pipe Thread Taper, as opposed to, and I don't think I've got an example here, BSPF, which I don't know where the F comes from, but it means parallel, so you haven't got that tapered thread on it. Now the idea is that with the tapered version, which is what this is. So both threads are tapered. Thread into that socket, different one again. See, that's a cast socket, whereas that is, you know what, I don't know what the right term is for that, but that's the ones that come on the tube ready. 2 threads tapered, so that when you wind them together, theory being the 2 tapers lock together and produce your water, air, gas, whatever type seal. Now that's in a perfect world. Truth of the matter is, with the rough old stuff that I've ever done, they never seal. So we use a sealant on there, which I'm going to use, if I can find it. Nothing like a bit of preparation for a video, is there? It's here somewhere, I know. This stuff. Loctite 50. Oh, sorry about that, but that didn't come out very well on the audio. Loctite 55. It is a PTFE string which you wind around the threads into the male thread. I'm sure everyone who has any interest in this video will understand why that's a male thread and that is a female thread. You either need a knowledge of engineering or biology to figure out why they are called that. So you wind the string, your Loctite 55, around the fitting. Now this is really tricky to do while watching a camera. So you start in, this is how I was taught to do it, you start in the grooves in the thread form in the bottom of the valley, wind it round like that, and obviously once you've wound it around a few times it locks in your tail, so you can just crack on, and you go back up the thread across the threads like that, and then you use the little cutter on there, which you will need because you will not break this stuff with your hands. You'll end up cutting grooves in your hand rather than breaking it, and then wind that last bit round like that. Obviously, sorry, another point, you've got to wind it in the opposite direction to the thread, okay, because then it will, as that fitting goes on, it will drive it down into the valley of the thread. If you wind it the wrong way around, you'll very quickly realise that you've done that, because as you wind it on, it will pull it out of the bottom of the threads and spit it all out that end as you wind that fitting on. And the grunt shows up, and in theory that should be an air, water, gas type seal. This stuff is a blinking revelation. It came into the industry about 4-5 years ago, might be longer than that now, time flies when you're having fun, and it just makes life so much better for using these things. I think they say, I remember reading a data sheet on this some time ago, and it's something like you can back the thread off up to, it's either 3/4 or a full turn, and they guarantee it will still hold. So the reason why you'd want to do that is, for example, if you're putting a length of thread on an elbow here now, so if you're putting a length of tube in and then you want to put an elbow on and you want to orientate, so imagine that's stuck to a wall somewhere and you've got a load of fittings that end, that means you can't turn that anymore. You want to put your elbow on and you want to face it in a certain direction. So you say you're tight up against the wall, so you wouldn't have that in there. You wind that in because that gives you less clearance, and then you want to wind this in to there, so then there's another fitting on the end of here, say, that means you can't wind it in tight to the wall. Then once you're done, you can wind that in, or if you're on the other hand, so you can overwind it and then wind it back against the wall. I hope that makes sense. I'm not sure that it does, but I'm sure you guys will tell me if it doesn't. So yeah, so that's the product we're going to use. The other product that is a lot more common and a lot more recognisable is this stuff. I'm sure everybody's seen this stuff. PTFE tape. It even tells you that on the packet, and I'm sure you all know what PTFE stands for. It stands for plumber's tape for everything. Okay, some people say it stands for polytetrafluoroethylene, but it's not true. It's plumber's tape for everything. So if you have to use this stuff, bit of a trick here, what you want to do is, I've seen some real dodgy use of this stuff in the past, trying to use it. So what you want to do is put it on your finger like that. You can lock it with this finger, okay, then hold it down like that, wind it round, first one, oh look at that, and don't let go until it's locked on. So once you've got two wraps over there, you've got it, and then it's just a simple job doing that. A guy I used to work with taught me this, I think my first or second day in my apprenticeship, and believe me, when you're wrapping something with PTFE, it's worth learning this, because it makes life so much easier. Not trying to do it like, I see some people trying to do it like, just like this, and they get a knot, and then they got to keep, learn that technique. It'll serve you well if you've got to use this stuff, but for preference, use that. It's bloody marvellous. Okay, I think that's enough for this bit. I'm going to stop the video there and figure out what I'm going to do next. Okay, so this is the route of the airline I'm going to fit. So you can see in front of you the compressor I've got. At the moment I've got a setup straight on the compressor, so you've got that comes straight out of the vessel, and then into regulator. So the vessel runs at about, I think it's either 8 or 10 bar, I can't remember now, I should know really. Vessel, let's say 8, I think it's 8. Vessel runs at 8, supplies into here, regulator, so turning that knob you can alter the pressure that comes out this side of it, and then underneath got a what's the right term, I can't remember, forgetting the water rate, so it drops the water rate. Let's give it a go, see if it'll drop a bit out for us. Oh yeah, messy. Might need to actually clear that out, I think. So then the first line I've got out here is for stuff that doesn't need lubricating. So if you were to do spraying, paint spraying, that kind of stuff, obviously you don't want any oil in it, you just want a clean supply. That's what that one's for. And that next block is a lubricator. That bowl's filled up with oil. It's got a little drip there and a control knob there, so you can regulate the amount of oil going into the airline. And then this line here is a lubricated line, so you use that with tools that need lubricating. So stuff like sanders, don't know, some nail guns. I've got a what are they called? Hammer gun for taking off impact wrench that needs oiling. That comes out of there. So I want to duplicate this setup but near the bench. So the idea is that on the back, when I put this in originally, I don't know how well you can see that because this camera's a bit rubbish, to be honest. I left that there so that I've still got a unregulated line out of the cylinder, out of the vessel. So I'm putting an elbow on there and then a flexi hose to a line that will go up the wall here somewhere. Take it up to high level, run it along, all the way along here, over to this, over here, and then down between those two cabinets which is going to be a right struggle because there's not a lot of room there, and then somewhere underneath those sockets, probably to the left somewhere. Now the other thing I'm going to do is, along the run, I'm going to put another, so I haven't got enough tube to do it in one long run, so I've got to put what you'd normally do is put a coupler in, but I'm not. I'm going to put a T in, and that's what I've seen done in factories over the years. Is the standard tube comes in 6.4 metre lengths, which I think is about 21 foot, and instead of using couplers, they always put T's in, so that you've always got an outlet if you want it. So I'm going to use the same theory, put T somewhere up there. I might put one over there, and then where the line comes up from the compressor up to there, that'll have a T on it there as well. So you've got the T coming up from the compressor, then out that way to do the to carry on towards the bench, and then another port facing that way, so that if I want to put a line that way in the future, I've got the option. And I might even, I don't know, I haven't decided on this, I might even put an outlet somewhere in the ceiling. I've seen a few people say that's a good idea, but I'll have to have a think about that. So yeah, that's the route. Like I say, it's nice and easy along there, and then down here it's as tight as a drum. But as I will say, a good bloke could do it, but I might be in trouble. Okay, so my idea of technical drawing. So here is my compressor. That squiggly blob there is supposed to be compressor. It's corner of the room, corner of the workshop, sorry. Two cabinets, nice big space which doesn't exist. Two sockets. So the idea is that the filter regulator lubricator will be sort of this position here. And just make it a bit clearer to use that. So the new line will go, so we've got a flexi joint in there, so we're going to put a line down there and a T at the top there. The line will come, the flexi line will come in, I haven't decided what yet, but maybe a couple of foot up into there, into a T, and then we'll have a valve there to use as a drain on that line. Explain that in a bit. And then go along here with a T somewhere about there, and along here, T about there. Now the observant amongst you will notice that I have drawn the T's the wrong way up. But from when I've done airlines in the past, the theory goes is you take all outlets at the top of the line, and then you come back down. So let's do it on this one here. So if when I decide to do this one, come out, across, back down, then back to the wall, then down to your outlet. That's what I'll do here as well. This one, as you'll notice, I'm sure will come straight at the bottom. The idea is, as you compress air, water condensates out of it, and it's a lot, as you could see by that water filter that I made a mess with earlier. So the idea is that the water that condenses within the line, you deal with that by the supply into it coming in at the bottom, or you can do it as a separate drain line, and then all this line along here will have a slight slope on it to drain it back in that direction. Then your lines that come out for your supply come at the top, so the water obviously doesn't come down your line and mess up things here, because if you get water in air tools, so I'm reliably informed, it massively increases the wear rate of the tool. If you're using a spray gun, again, apparently it's not something I've ever done, but apparently it's an unmitigated nightmare and it'll destroy your paint finish. So that's the theory, and as I say, that when I've done it in industry is the way it is always done. You go out the top, down, and then you have drain lines along with if you're flash, you have automatic drain lines, so you can get bits of kit that if you put a drop there, you bolt it to the bottom, it senses when there's a certain amount of water in there, then we'll drop the line, drop the water out. I can't afford or need that, to be honest. There's no need for me to do that. I can do it very simply with this here. Just have a valve at the bottom which allows me to drop the line every so often when I remember, which if the cylinders are going to go by, not often enough, but you just drop it into a bucket, toss it out the door, job's a good one. The other thing I'll do is, as I say, at each position it'll have a regulator and a water filter on it, just like I've got existing on the compressor at the moment. So anything that does make it through here and anything that condenses in that line will hopefully be caught by that water filter there. So then again, so come out the top, down, back to the wall, down through here. What I might do actually, another drain line there, but I'll have to see. I don't know whether I need it or not. It's a bit tricky. And put a valve there, possibly for a drain line, and then onto the filter, regulator, lubricator. Again, we'll have an isolation valve there so that I can turn it off if I need to do any work to this, keep the rest of it up and running. Again, that's more an industry thing, because obviously in industry, if you want to do some maintenance to a filter regulator, you don't want to have to drop the entire network because one filter regulator is knackered. But in my case, it don't really matter, but for the sake of a valve, let's do it. What else do I need to think about? I think that's about it. I need to get the flexi line. There's a local flexible hose company who can make that up for me for very few pennies. What I will also do is do a takeoff of what fittings I need. I've got a few already. To figure out what I need. Sorry, yeah, takeoff. Okay, so again, that's what it might be a term you're not used to. I don't know, but it's like a cutlass or a chippy, I suppose. It's just a tot up of what tube you need, what fittings you need. So when you go to the merchants, you only, hopefully, in theory, only have to go the once. Although it never blinking works like that. So I'll just explain this, how I'm going to do this. So we have got, what have I done? Another bag somewhere. There should be. Isn't that well? Incredible stuff. Yeah. Right, okay, so let's move that out of the way. Moment. We've got one of them. Two of them. And that. That'll do for this demonstration. So, okay. What we've got is, imagine that's the line coming along. So that's the T. A bit more central. That's better. Right. sealant. Can't get that in there, did I? Sealing. Floor. So you get one of these. So this is an elbow as well, but it's called a street elbow. I always wondered why it's called a street elbow. If anyone can tell me, I'll be really chuffed to know, because I've wondered for about, I don't know, 10-15 years why these are called street elbows. But so obviously it's got a male thread there, female thread there, so wind that into there. And then another one, straight up again, wind that into there. And that's the shortest distance that with iron you can do a 90-degree turn. Again, unless anyone is better, but I've never seen it done any quicker than that, any tighter than that. That's the smallest gap you can get by using a street elbow. If you used a conventional elbow, you'd have to use a short bit of pipe, for example a nipple, and that will bring you out significantly more. You can sort of visualise it there. Brings you out about another pipe, so about another. A lot of dimensions when I've been doing my apprenticeship were described as a pipe. So you can see it was a bit more than that actually. About a pipe and a half across. So that keeps it nice and tight. And then what we can do is we might have to do, yeah. So then wind that in there. Like that. And then another, I think that's going to be another street there, although that won't fit. I'm going to have to put a length of pipe in there. That nipple isn't going to be enough, because if you, I'm sure you can see, and I'm sure you're all giggling at me as we speak, as I speak rather. God, this is one of the things I love about working on site. You can never find the bloody fitting you want when you need it. So if we put a street in there, you can't really see it because that tube's in the way. There you go. Like a cameraman of me yet. So if you try and put that in there, you can't do it because you wind it and it'll hit out on there. So if we put a length of tube in there, drop that down further, then we can put that street elbow in there and pretty much end up in line. Pretty much end up in line with where we started. Okay, like I said, this iron stuff, piece of cake. We'll see, I might regret this yet. Okay, so as I say, that again is to prevent, imagine that's facing up, that's to prevent the water that's trickling back down here ending up in your airline. It's as simple as you like. It's a lovely bit of simple engineering.